Well, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome our next guest on this interview series of Tim Martinez, the inside man, all the way from California. I love on your LinkedIn profile, it says, I solve big problems for serious people. But it also goes on to say, you've been a serial entrepreneur for 25 years. You've been operating, investing in and selling various companies. And really interestingly, now as well, it mentions something called the three exit framework. Look, before we get to that, over to you. Where did this journey begin?
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for the intro. I always say I was the kid with the lemonade stand. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Really, there's a particular type of kid that has the lemonade stand, and I was that guy. So when I was about 8 or 9, I went outside and plucked the lemons from the backyard, made a buck from nothing, said, "This is pretty cool. What else can I sell?" I went and got lollipops and put them in my fanny pack and sold them to kids in high school or in junior high. I bought a little silk screen machine, made t-shirts, sold those to kids in high school, became a DJ, sold mixtapes. So my entrepreneurial journey has really just been, how can I make a buck? What can I start immediately? How do I make a dollar? By the time I was, let's say, 23, 24, some of that early 20s, I had owned two skateboard shops. I had owned a skateboard company. I had an event business. I had a PR firm. I was just doing a lot of things. And I was just finding people. I grew up in Los Angeles and lived in Hollywood for years. So you kind of grow up just around the fast moving entertainment industry, apparel, fashion, technology. It was kind of like the intersection of all these things happening, music. And I was always around. I was just always around. I knew a lot of people. So I had sold a retail store. I had a mobile espresso business. I sold it. I built apps. I sold them. I sold some of the apps that I built to another company. I had a PR firm. We did an aqua hire of sorts. FYI, I didn't know anything, by the way. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what these things were called. I didn't know about acquisitions. I never heard the word exit. I definitely didn't know what an entrepreneur was. I didn't hear the word entrepreneur until I was like in my 30s. So somewhere around the time I was like 25, 26, people started asking me, how are you doing all this? And I got really comfortable learning how to write business plans because I'm a writer by trade and I just love writing. I just always put my ideas down. And I used to find these free resources here in the States called SCORE, Senior Council of Retired Executives. And they're a division of the SBA. And they would just give you free advice. And you could just show up and talk to these old timers about, hey, I have an idea to do this thing. And they would just sit there and shoot you down and or tell you why it's a good idea. Or they would look at my little business plans. And I just got really good at putting my ideas down on paper. And when people started asking me, how are you doing this? Can you help me with my business? I went to the bookstore and I bought a book called How to Start a Consulting Business. And I remember sitting there and just highlighting it. And I don't think I've looked back since then. And it has been a wild ride. I am the least likely character to be in this business, I say, or at least I feel sometimes. I grew up in Southern California, DJing, skateboarding, kind of that culture of music, art, fashion, entertainment. And those were really the first businesses that I started working with. So helping someone start their own skateboard store, helping someone start their own apparel brand, helping someone, raise money from their rich uncle and just doing all these little things. And as my career started growing in my early 20s, I started meeting angels and people that worked in banking and people that did financing and real estate guys. And I started working with other consulting firms like moonlighting. And I was just trying to figure it out. Kind of going over this whole span of 20 something years, I have figured out how to climb and crawl my way up to the very, very tippity top of what I would call the intersection of management consulting, investment banking, and entrepreneurship. So that's really where I live. And now what I primarily do is I hover with the C-suite, mainly CEOs and their executive teams, answering existential questions as best as we can. How do we grow? How do we scale? What are we doing? How do we take over? And I've gone global. I've worked with thousands of companies at this point. I've worked on countless financial models. I've seen it. I've seen it all. So I love the business. I love what I do. I'm very, very passionate about it. But I didn't go to business school. I didn't come at it that way. I just came at it from the street. So that's my background. That's how I got to where I'm at.
Absolutely brilliant. I love that story. Started in skateboarding shops, right through apparel apps. You've literally done pretty much everything. Sounds incredible.
touched a lot. Yeah. Yeah. It's been a cool ride.
Amazing.
It's been fun.
Out of all of those businesses that you started or operated, which one was your favorite?
Yeah, it's a good question. I like businesses that generate quick cash. I like to see the first dollar really fast. So even though I worked in retail for a long time, and that's just one snapshot of my retail journey, I would say the DJing business was fast money. It was really fast, and people didn't have a really good gauge on how much something should cost. And living in Hollywood, if you're DJing a party at Quincy Jones' house, you're like, yeah, it's $10,000. We'll bring the lights in it. They're like, oh, fine. So you're just throwing crazy numbers out there. And as a young man, you're getting money real fast and it's coming. And then, kind of have like the lifestyle that goes with it. So that was like a really fun business in those days.
Yeah, I love that. And is that because now you mentioned, you're in management consultancy and you help people solve these big problems? I guess one of the biggest problems is how do we become more profitable? So that quick money, the speed of money is important, isn't it?
Yeah. How do we become more profitable? I mean, the big problems that you have, it has a lot to do with stage. So whenever I'm speaking with someone that's trying to solve their business problem, I look at the stage of their business. There's something called the Griner model. I don't know if you've heard of that, but the Griner model says that there's various steps in the ladder. And as if you want to get to the next step, you need different resources to get to the next step. You need to different team, different thinking, different approaches. You're going to have different crises at every step in the ladder. So if someone's saying, we're trying to scale, I go, great, tell me about your business. So we'll be in business for 3 years. We're doing 2 million in revenue. And I go, okay, very clear picture. If someone says, I'm trying to scale, we've been in business for 100 years and we do about 50 million in revenue, I go, very different, very different. Like you've probably hit multiple rungs of inertia. You're dealing with your own, like, again, like your own existential issues. Why aren't we growing? What does it all mean? You start kind of getting to that arena. So I just listen. I like to listen and ask and ask and ask questions and then ask them from different ways and really get down to the root. I would say in consulting, whatever the problem people tell you is, it's never the problem. You have to go about 3 or 4 layers below the problem to really find out what we're trying to solve for versus
Yeah,
scale. Oh, we want to scale. Everybody wants to scale. What does that even mean? Do you want to scale through M&A? Do you want to scale through taking your resources, your financial, and have maybe a lower profit, but then putting more of those financial into the business, more advertising, staffing up? Do you want to get rid of your staff and just bring in robots from Tesla? Like, what does it mean to you? And most people don't have an answer or don't have a very clear answer. So I think the role of the management consultant is to come in, to sit down, to kind of work with these teams, the executive teams, because everybody has their own reasons for that, why they want to do things, various politics. And so you kind of got to get really good at the soft skills versus just the hard skill of here's a spreadsheet, here's a calculator, here's a whiteboard, this is how we're going to get there. You're dealing with emotions and other things to grow. So that's a lot of the type of work that I do.
yeah. I,
Yeah.
I love that. So you're kind of a coach in there as well. You're asking, I guess, the better questions you ask, the better answers you get.
Yeah, and I have a very clear definition on coaching and consulting. Um, if you pull out your phone, you're probably going to get hammered with ads that say, "Are you a coach, consultant, or agency owner?" I mean, we see them all day long, but they're very different things, right? A coach, the onus is on you. So, what are you going to do, Ross? This is what we think you should do. This is how we're going to elevate you, push the ball forward, but it's going to come down to you picking up the weights and building the muscles. The consultant, the onus is on me. All right. If I built out a $1 billion roadmap for you and I have my financial model and all my data and all the resources and everything dialed in, and that thing falls flat, it's on me. Or if I don't execute, or if I don't do digital transformation or integration, all these things, it's on me largely. So if you're ethical at it, it's on you, right? And that's kind of how I get consulting. So it's like, well, do you need a coach or do you need a consultant? That's like the first big question. Like, what are we solving for?
Yeah, I love that. And when you do get layers deep, as you say, how often do you end up having to have some difficult conversations with the founder or with the C-suite?
All the time. That is 100% of what you're dealing with is difficult conversations. I can't tell you how many times I've rebuilt the org chart for the C-suite on
Mhm.
behest of the CEO. Thinking about a succession, thinking about an exit, thinking about getting out. Can you interview my executive team? Maybe even take it a level below VPs, directors, identify someone for me. Let's talk it out, and that is very, very You have to walk very delicately and gently, and there's a lot of landmines. So knowing how to spot a landmine like way in advance so you don't blow yourself or the other people up at the same time is a very soft skill. I always say, like, people say, what do you do? And I say, well, I get helicoptered into the middle of the fight, and I have to fight my way out without, like, killing myself and that kind of thing. It's like you're just fighting your way out of these complex situations. And I think there's a certain personality type. It takes a very particular individual that wants to do that type of work
Mhm.
and wants to get good at doing that work and cares enough about the people. So you have to kind of have a high level of empathy, but at the same time, no, it's still a job. We're still about increasing enterprise value. Not everybody gets a trophy. It's that kind of stuff. So you kind of have to have like both sides of the table to do this job well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got like a little vision in my head now of you being dropped in the middle,
Yeah,
sort of
exactly.
out helicopter thing. Um, have you ever come across the situation where it was the owner? Yeah, Michael says, yeah, like Rambo style. Yeah, you dropping in. Um, yeah, have you ever come across where it was the owner themselves that was the problem?
9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, the owner's the problem. 99.9% time. There's an old saying, the fish stinks from the head. So if you want to find the problem, look at the head, and there you will find your problem. As business owners, we always have to take 100% ownership of everything that's wrong inside of our business. That's where we start the conversation. So if I hear someone saying, my head of HR just isn't doing these and we're paying her too much, and well, what did you do to enable that behavior? What parameters did you set for her? What benchmarks, what guidelines, what business intelligence are we staying at? Have you informed her about this information? Now you start getting into like HR territory, right? Where you start having this like really person to person conversation. What are we prepared to do about this? What have you done in the past? What worked? What didn't work? But let's go deeper into why it didn't work and why it did work in the past. And you start, there's an old saying, you'll always run out of answers, but you'll never run out of questions. So my answers are only going to go so far for you. You have the answers, Mr. Business Owner, Mrs. Business Owner. You already have all the answers. The role that I play is to help you extract your own answers, to get you to a point to make your own decisions versus me telling you what to do. Otherwise, I'm consultant number 10 that you've hired over the last 10 years. I'm not going to solve a thing for you in that arena. It's not until I get the light bulb to go on for you that you see the decision that you need to make. Are we ever going to make change? But yeah, the business owner is the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. How often have you ever got into a situation where they didn't want to hear that, or are you actually quite?
They never want to hear it. They never want to hear it. To do this
They
job
must.
well,
They must deep down. They must be prepared for that. Do you
for
not think?
sure, for sure. Well, okay. Never, let me take that back. You, as the professional, I always have to be prepared to walk. And the second I go into a meeting saying, you can fire me based upon this information, I'm okay with that. I'm prepared to be fired if you don't like what I hear. It's the only way that this relationship works. If I'm worried about my own paycheck, then I'm never really going to tell you what you need to hear. So for me, this is why I run an independent consulting practice, because I have all the freedom in the world, and I've been doing this for 20 something years. I love it. You don't like what I have to tell you, don't take it. It's fine. But let me tell you this, this is what the problem is. We've identified, and then if you don't take an action, the problem's going to persist, and it's going to actually get worse if we don't start dealing with this. There are clients that are they're built differently, and they're like, they take the advice, they have business coaches, they've invested into themselves, and this is why they're a success, by the way. They're running a $50-100 million business because they send themselves to conferences, they read the books, they got the business coach, they do the workouts, they journal, they get up early, they do the gratitude, they do all the things that you need to do. They're amazing leaders. They've removed themselves from multiple roles over 10, 15, 20 years. People love them in the industry. And when they come to you, they understand your value and they say, like, I don't need you to solve everything for me. I'm just looking for a perspective, a tweak, a change. I know that a 1% change in my difference could be millions of dollars. So I'm happy to pay you $100,000 to make that 1% difference in my business versus
Yeah.
working with a small business owner. And this is maybe their first rodeo. And they still think they're God. They still think like my way, the highway, I'm Elon Musk, or I'm this tough guy, that kind of thing. There's a lot of
Yeah.
machismo in this, a lot of alpha male, a lot of Wolf of Wall Street. Like, it's very toxic
Yeah.
because, we're not putting the lens on the customer and then working our way backwards from that.
Yeah, and as you said before, you've got those different stages. So you might be a fantastic founder, you can get something off the ground, but you're
Bingo.
not the right person to take it to 5 million, 10 million, 100 million.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm,
Totally different skill sets, different relationships, different um, understanding of how finances work. I mean, acquisitions. I love acquisitions. Wonderful. There's so many ways to do an acquisition, right? I mean, we could sit here and list 10 right now, just
mm,
list 10. But if you're trying to grow your business and you get to a certain point and you're thinking, I think I should grow through acquisition, someone told me I should, but you've never physically seen someone structure a deal and slice the dice 20 different ways. What do you know about acquisitions? Nothing. So you need to be humble enough to bring an expert in to say,
mm.
this is how we're going to do it. And then give them the reins and learn in the process and go for it. But as long as you think like, it's not going to work, it's not going to work for me, or you're just trying to sell me something, like that's where the toxicity comes in.
Yeah, you do get a lot of that. Is there a sort of sweet spot for the types of business that you work with?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, on the low end, 5 million EBITDA is always what we're looking for. $5 million EBITDA is like that gets the conversation started. I would say the $1 million EBITDA is really where most of the phone calls come in, right? Or really maybe even below, because I believe there's an invisible wall of it at about $3 million. $2 to $3 million is just this wall, and people have a hard time getting past the 3 million. Really,
Mhm.
really ultimately shooting to get to 5 million to get to the 1 million EBITDA, because that's your 20%. That's really kind of what they're shooting for, but there's a wall at about 3. It's weird. And I've seen it over and over and again. Then you break past the wall and you start getting your next wall, maybe 20 or so. But I like owner operators, primarily family-owned businesses, 55 plus, male, female, doesn't matter, semi-industry agnostic. I mean, I'm not going to do underwater welding. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about that, but for the most part, service-based business, consumer products, a lot of manufacturing, because they're legacy style businesses all across the country, and we do work internationally. But I would say 55 plus, family owned, owner operator, and they know they're going to need to get out in the next 5 years. That's kind of the starting point of a conversation.
Yeah, I love that. And I guess the more specific you can be, the easier it is to attract those clients as well.
Exactly, exactly. I worked a lot in advertising, so I meet with a lot of agency owners and service-based business owners.
Yeah. If we just go back to something you said, which was really interesting, and you said there was like kind of this invisible wall at kind of 3 million. Is that is that mindset? Is it processes that are missing? What do you think that is?
Yeah, I think it's a few things. It's actually pretty. It's I have this conversation a lot, so I'd be curious to get your take on this. But I think when you have these small business owners, first time owner operators, for the most part, I mean, they may have had an endeavor or two prior that didn't go anywhere really, maybe. But when you start getting to, you're doing $100,000, $200,000 a month in revenue, you're finally at a point to where you can pay yourself as the owner, let's say 250,000. It's fair, right? And you're putting your money away, and you're not rich, but you're definitely not poor. You're doing well, you're doing okay, and you can now breathe. You probably have someone doing back office for you. You definitely have someone in place doing the work that maybe you once did. You now have built your own inertia. You have your own comfortability level, and there's really not a whole lot of incentive for you to become a new person at that point. And you might have a good base of customers. You spent 3 to 5 years putting your name out there, building brand recognition and trust and case studies and all that kind of stuff, whatever you're doing. But now you got to that first bubble where you're like, this is how the world works. And if we were to do a revenue projection, it's probably going to be 2 to 3 all the way out, maybe 10%, maybe 20% growth. You might even have a down year, but there's not a whole lot of change. You're just going to be stuck in this universe. It's not until you kind of have to break into different markets. You have to do different things. What got you here is not going to get you there. So how do you get to 5? Well, getting to 5, why not just go to 10? Really, at that point, if you got to 3 and you built yourself a comfortable base, this is really where I would start having acquisitions conversations with these people. We'll grow through acquisitions. You're going to need a different skill set because you can't keep white knuckling your way up to the top. You've white knuckled yourself to a point, then it's like, how much more do you want to white knuckle you? Now, you can always invest more in staff, more in sales team, more marketing, more in branding, right? And that's really what most people do. But that's what got them to the 3 million in the first place, right? More podcasts, more content, more this, more. But you're like, you're just going to make incremental gains after some point. To make those outsized gains, why not go buy 3 or 4 of your competitors over 5 years? If we put a plan together to go buy 3 or 5 of your competitors in 5 years, you're going to be further along in 5 years than if you just hunkered down and did more content and ran more ads. I
Yeah,
think.
and do what's that saying? If you do the same thing,
Yeah.
oh, do you know what I mean? It's like
And
doing the
do the
same
same
thing.
thing, expect different results.
That's it. That's the exactly same. Yeah. I
Definition
mean,
of insanity.
if
Yeah.
you want a definition of insanity, yeah, thanks. Albert Einstein or someone that said it, I
Yeah,
think.
right. Exactly. Well,
Um,
Stein also said you can't solve a problem from the same thinking that created the problem. So
yeah,
in my own businesses, whatever problems I have, those are there because the thinking that I had created those. And it's not until you, Ross, come break my mental processes and my thinking and my mindset and all that kind of stuff that I can now get to a new place. Otherwise, I'm just holding on to my, the difference between beliefs and truths and values and all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. And as you say, there's a lot of things that probably keep someone there from their beliefs, from what they've done up until that time. There's that comfort zone that you mentioned as well. All of a sudden, if they've got to bring in, new senior teams and invest in all of these policies, procedures, all of a sudden their own income's going to drop a little bit, and maybe they don't want that to happen.
Totally. And you get comfortable hiring lower level people because you're essentially mindful of every dollar that goes out the door. So you're thinking, let's just get another 40 to 50,000 person, another 40 to 50, another 40 to 50. Let's just keep running them through. They're going to stay for 2 or 3 years and quit. We're just going to have this cycle where what you should do is like, why not go get a $150,000 person who's worth 3 of those people? They're going to stay longer, structure a comp model to where they're winning, give them some kind of potentially upside ownership or something, and then they're going to be your workhorse. They're going to grind because then they now have a reason to. It's not just hiring expensive people for hiring expensive people. You have to bring them in and align your vision and say, like, let's just pull out all your skill sets and let's go quadruple the size of this company. They're out there. They want to do it. I actually think there's a big
Yeah,
opportunity
absolutely.
to pull the baby boomers back in. I think there's a big opportunity for that because there's a lot of boomers out there that just want to keep working and they're smart individuals. They have great work ethic. They'll phenomenal resource out there, human resource. And yet we're still hiring college kids en
Yeah.
masse. And you have to have a little bit of both, of course, but I think we're way lopsided on just hiring college kids.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because if you look at them on paper, this person's got 40 years of industry experience. They've seen everything before. Or this person that has no experience and he just comes out of college. Like, who do you want on your team? Like,
Exactly. But you have to be the kind of leader that's willing to step back and let smart people do what smart people do.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So on the subject of smart people and smart things, tell us about this three exit framework.
Yeah, I was saying earlier that it kind of came to me in the middle of the night, but I always think about the people that I have conversations with on a daily basis and what I hear, and I always look for similarities in what I'm hearing over and over and over again. If I'm having a conversation, let's say at the end of every week, I like to say, what did I hear this week? What did I hear? What was the theme of this week? I kept hearing this thing. So I heard a couple themes over the last couple of years when I speak with these owner operators, 55 plus, and I just kept hearing it over and over again. So I believe there's 3 exits that need to occur before you have your final check and you're sitting on the beach drinking Mai Tais. It's not one exit. And I believe the problem is everyone thinks there is one exit. And then they have misaligned expectations. And it's really hard to align those expectations because they're like, what? Here's my business, go sell it. So here's my 3 exits. First exit is the mental exit. The mental exit, the first thing that you have to understand is you cannot run your business forever. It's an impossibility. And yet, so often business owners think they can run it or they don't have to really think about that. They'll think about that later. But the mental exit is like, let's just start getting your head around the idea that you can't stay in your seat forever. It's an impossibility. You're really setting yourself up for failure. You're not setting your team up. You're not setting your partners, suppliers. You just simply cannot be in this forever. So there's an emotional exit, if you will, that's tied to that mental exit, because your identity becomes the business. And a lot of people get scared because they're like, well, what do I do if I'm not the business? Even though they may be wealthy and have all their 401k stacked and paid off the mortgage and own all the nice cars and all that stuff, they still can't let go of this business identity because they don't know who they are, but they don't have it. So it's this mental exit that I like to say you have to get over that. I did a survey recently on one of my blogs, and 66% of voters out of 40 are in reactive mode when it comes to planning for their exit. 66% said, I'll do it when I'm ready. I'll do it when an offer is made. I'll do it when, when I have to, essentially, is what they're saying on it. And we know that 100% of smart business owners would agree you should always have your plans written down somewhere to where if something occurs. So that's the first, is really just getting over like the mental blocks that you might have. Some of those other mental blocks are, no one's going to want this. It might not be worth anything. That sounds complicated, or, business brokers. I don't want to talk to a broker or an attorney, or you just all these like little limiting beliefs that start popping up. It won't happen for me. That's the kind of thing that happens for them. Maybe I'll just run this till all my customers leave, or the market changes and ChatGPT rules the world. Like, right? You hear all this self-talk. This is all mental exit. So we got to work with you on the mindset, right? Just get your mind right. The next exit, once you're like, okay, I understand that I can't run this business forever. It's like, great. The next exit you have to do is your role exit. You have to exit your role. Now, whether or not you intend to stay in the business or work on it, to be part of an earn-out scenario, or whatever you want to structure for yourself, you just simply cannot be the CEO. You can't be the CEO. You need to like check out of the CEO, and you need to find another smart person who's not only capable, but can far exceed anything you've ever done in your entire career. And just to think about that, it's like, oh, that's like a chink in the armor. It's like, I'm the numero uno. What do you mean hire someone that could be better and badder than I've ever been in my entire career? Like, yeah, why wouldn't we want that person? You think we want to bring someone in that would do less than you did in your career? No. So it's like the role exit is, okay, well, let's just start thinking, what would that look like? Well, what do you do on a daily basis? You know how many times I've done this exercise? Think I want to sell my business. Great. Do me this exercise for the next 2 weeks. Roll around with a notepad, and every time you do something, anything, answer an email, take a phone call, answer a text, talk to an employee, write it down. And at the end of the 2 weeks, we're going to go through your massive list, and we're going to create an SOP off of that. They don't want to do it. They don't want to do it.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I talk to customers, I talk to suppliers, and no one can do what I do. What is part of the role exit? Transitioning your relationships, transitioning your knowledge. It's a transference of value. If you can't transfer the value up here, the transfer of your knowledge, of your culture, the way you believe and lead and all that kinds of, if you can't transfer that out, then it's going to die with you. It's going to be stuck with you. So I always have people go through the bus plan. If you get hit by a bus today, right now, you walk out the door, get hit by a bus, what happens to your business? Well, it's not my problem anymore. Ooh, that's very unethical. That's a very unethical way to approach your business. So let's just go through the bus plan. What would happen to your employees? Let's start there. What happens to your wealth? What happens to your suppliers? To the people that you owe money to, your AR, what happens to all this stuff? What happens to your spouse, your kids, your dog? Let's go through it. Let's write it down. This is what happened if I walked out the door today and got hit by a bus. Who sells it? Who's my attorney? Who's my team? This is all the role exit. Getting people really, really comfortable with, as long as you're stuck in the seat. I mean, how many times have you heard a business owner died? And that was it. No one knew the passwords of this, the that, the other. There's the 5 Ds that are part of the role exit: death, divorce, disease, dysfunction, and distance. These are the 5 Ds, the 5 things that will pull a business owner out of a business outside of their own will, if you will. Right? So you're either going to be proactive and make a decision, or you're going to be reactive in the decision. Let's be reactive together. It's not that complicated. We'll work with you. We'll pull out the sheets and go through this whole thing and get you to the point to where you know how to exit. We've mentally checked you out. We're building out an SOP on how to check you out of the role. And then we'll get to the final exit. Well, what's the final exit? Well, the final exit is all the fun stuff that we talked about: due diligence, valuations, building a target list, looking at strategic versus financial buyers, structuring the deal, negotiating, closing, transitions, like what is a transitionary period as, or earn out, like all that stuff. That's the actual exit. So there's millions of articles written. That's all the technical stuff, not very complicated. There's emotions tied into that because You may have thought your business was worth more. That's the number one reason these deals die, is because people were misaligned on valuations. But those three. So if you say the mental exit, the role exit, and then the actual physical exit, are the three exits that happen.
I love that. It's really, really easy to get your head around as well. I guess if you are the seller, you're like, okay, that's the order I've got to go in. It has to be in that order as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly. And it's like, I love how you guys are focused on acquisitions. I'm on like the other side. So I'm on the side working with the people that are going to be acquired and getting
Mhm.
them ready and getting them in a good place. And again, think about, I think 90, someone correct me on this, but I think 90% of small businesses in America are family owned.
Yeah,
So
huge.
now you're dealing also with family politics. Family politics play a
Yeah,
huge part in this. Mom wants to sell it, but this was my career. What am I do if mom sells the business? And so you're also dealing with that whole side of things.
definitely. And even if you say sort of we're on the acquisition side of things, but I don't think enough time is spent talking about the mindset of the acquirer as well. I think a lot of people out there make it sound like this is an easy way to grow your business, but actually you've got to be the right person who can implement this. And it brings up its own challenges.
Yeah. I mean, what a third of, so I think like 75% of businesses actually, they're not successful in the acquisition process. So
Yeah.
one out of four actually successfully completes an acquisition. And then we have to ask the question of the transition period. So if just because the acquisition is completed, then what percentage of those actually have successful integrations?
Yeah, 100%. It's not an easy way to grow when you look at it like that. You said something interesting before as well with that first mindset or mental exit, which is, is kind of linked to emotion and very much linked to your identity. I experienced this in my family as well. My wife retired when we sold the business a few years ago. She was like, I've been working really hard. I'm really looking forward to this, not having to worry about business anymore. And then we went traveling around Central America. We went through 4 countries really quickly. And every time we went through immigration, they said, "What do you do?" And she said,
Oh,
my mum. And then she said, "I'm a housewife." And then she was like, "What do I do?" It was really interesting because you do, like, your job becomes who you are, it becomes your identity. And that checking out that first is so important, I think.
yeah. And it's okay if you want to stay in your business. I've worked on plenty of succession plans where we take an owner and we say the business is very profitable. We have a good 5-year projection of how we're going to continue to grow. We've looked at your C-suite. We've identified an individual. They're going to come in and be the president or CEO. You'll move back to chairman, right? And here's what happens if that person dies, right? So you have to do bus plan on the way down, by the way. You can't just do it for yourself. You have to do it for everyone in your that you're delegating to. But and then this gives them some ownership. It gets them a little bit of a say, but they really do need to kind of pull back, and it's not their show to run anymore. Otherwise, you go into micromanagement territory. But yeah, it doesn't mean you have to fully exit your business. That's the other misnomer. People think like, I want to sell my business, and then does that mean I have to be completely out? It's like, no, we can do whatever we want. I mean, the sky is the limit. As many different humans are out there, as many different types of deals that we can structure. There's nothing to say you can't. You can be on as a paid consultant. You can just, you can start a nonprofit that works with this thing. I mean, so many different cool, weird, interesting things that you can do to stay involved in your business. Maybe it's just stay on as a mentor for people that come through. Maybe you just stay on the business development side and manage relationships. You could be well into your ages and just managing business relationships. There's so many things you can do. Board of advisors, you don't even have to be a director. You just be an advisor. So, it's like, what do you want your lifestyle to look like? That's another thing, is lifestyle design. Let's just talk about your lifestyle. Because a lot of times they think, well, 100% of my earnings is coming from this business, classic owner operator. So if I'm, going to sell this thing, then I need to get a big enough check that at least covers most of what I was making with that. So that's just the financial part. But you're also saying, well, 100% of all my relationships in life have come from this business. 100% of my value as a human comes from this. 100% of the way that my wife looks at me adoringly comes from this. 100% of the things my kids get to tell their friends about their dad comes from this. 100, right? You just go down the list and you're like, this is what we have to get you over that hurdle. Who are
Yeah,
you
that
when out of this?
isn't it.
Yeah.
But I love that. And what I really liked about the role exit as well, I love the bus plan. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, and getting them to write everything down for 2 weeks, like every
Yeah.
phone call, every email. Because you hear all the time, like, oh, I don't do a lot of my business. Like, it could run without me. And then get them to do that. Like, there's a lot.
Yeah, we had an assistant, and one day, this is years and years ago, the assistant didn't show up to work. And you're asking questions like, well, where was that email? And what was that access? And how do I get into that thing? And what were they working on? And you start kind of going through that thing. And they didn't show up the second day, they didn't show up the third day. We finally get a phone call from the assistant's parents. This individual got hit by a bus. They were okay, they lived, but they were in the hospital for like 3 months. It was bad. It was really bad. They got hit by a bus. So then you start asking, well, shoot, what if I got hit by a bus? What happens to my wife? Like literally, I walk out today, I get hit by a bus. I ride my bike to coffee every single day. What happens if I get hit by a bus? What happens to my business, my 20 something employees today? What happens to my business partner? Does he know where all the paperwork is? Like just basic things we just don't do. We don't want to do them. It's not the sexy stuff. It's not the fun stuff. This is what wealth managers do really well. Wealth
Mhm.
managers have this conversation. Estate attorneys have this conversation, but as business professionals, we don't have this conversation.
Yeah.
We're the ones that should be having this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. I love that as well about the lifestyle design. That's a really big part of it as well, isn't it? What do you actually want?
Yeah.
Um, One of the first things I think I learned on my journey was you can agree anything in a contract. Because when we first started looking at acquisition, I thought I'd only ever seen it on the telly before. It was on movies and things like that. And I thought it was very black and white. You did this and this happened. And then you realize that's not the case at all.
Not the case at all. It's rarely the case. So I get concerned when I hear someone say, we think we're ready to sell our business. How long is it going to take? And you're like, whoa, okay, hold on, hold on. I don't know how long it's going to take. How long is it going to take? That's a big question. I mean, it could take a week if we have a buyer who's ready to come in and you're willing to say yes to all their terms. It could take
Mhm.
a year. So exit planning is a process, not an event. You need a deal team. You can't do it alone. You can't do it with one person. You have to have multiple people involved, an attorney, your wealth manager, estate planner, all these people, your family. So it's like, do you have all those things in place? Do you have a target number? Do you know what your valuation is? Have you done discounted cash flows and EBITDA multiples and SDE? Do you know what all these things mean to you? Do you know, or would you be prepared if someone came in and was slicing, dicing the deal, maybe doing like 10% accounts receivable financing and 10% asset-based lending and 20% with like your key employees buying in stock? Like, do you even know what any of this means? Because that's how it's going to come at you. Most likely. I mean, I wish everyone just came in and cut a big check. I love the PE guys, but the PE guys play a different game. The PE guys are like, they're looking for $5 million EBITDA. We want $50 million EBITDA. They're a totally different ball of wax. What I'm talking here is small to mid-sized family-owned businesses doing, let's say, $100 million and less.
Yeah. And as you say,
For the most of the guys. Yeah.
everyone thinks you're just going to come in and write a check, and on day one, they just leave. And it isn't like that.
It's not like that. And that's why even on my website, I say growth and exits. So typically someone says, I want to sell. We tell them what their value is. They're not happy with that. Then it's like, okay, then now we need to grow. So let's just focus on growth planning, strategic advisory, like let's tear it apart, go to market and all this type of stuff, new resources, new vendors. How are we going to scale 20% of profit margins? Like we're going to go into classic consulting to try to give you back a roadmap that's going to take your business in 2 to 3x the size of it in X period of time. And then once we get there, then we can have the valuation conversation and the exit conversation again. You're just really premature for that. So I respect the fact that you're thinking of that, but let's go back a step into growth. Let's get your mind wrapped around your mental. And let's start talking about your role exit, your standard operating procedures. Let's bring in some smart talent, bring in the right resources. Let's really transform what we got here. And then trust me, in 3 to 5 years, I'm gonna be in a way better position to walk out that door.
Yeah. Love that. What is there one thing that we haven't spoke about that yet that you really want the viewers of this to get across or to take away, sorry.
Yeah. Timing is one of those abstract concepts. It's one of those abstract things. Timing is everything. Timing is so much. It's like you're either in control of the process and you're controlling time as much as you can because you're being proactive about planning and building out your team and exiting your role. Like you can make time work for you if you're being proactive. Or timing is going to happen to you and you're going to have one of those 5 Ds, the death, divorce, disease, dysfunction, or some event is going to occur and now it's forcing you into doing this. Market shift. So just because you have value in your business today means absolutely nothing about the value of your business tomorrow. I wish it did. Did any of us see the pandemic? No. Some businesses quadrupled in size and some are gone forever just because of one massive event. Is there another one around the corner? We don't know. Is there, we've seen automation just decimate industries and grow other industries. So timing is everything. When is the right time? Is probably one of the biggest questions that I get is like, when's the right time for me to sell my business? So I would say, well, let's just take timing and try to be proactive on the timing conversation versus reactive on the timing conversation. So it's never too early to start exit planning. And for me, any business venture I get involved in ever, it's the first thing I think about before I even start a business is how we're going to get out of this thing.
Yeah. Starting with the end in mind. And
Okay.
with that, what you said there, do you think the best time to sell a business then is now? Because there could be a pandemic next year or something
I am
or a
an
war.
advocate. I am an advocate of getting out. I don't know your particular situations on this call, but I'm an advocate of getting out while the getting's good,
Mhm.
while the sky is, clear and the roses are, smelling nice and the birds are singing, like go, because you can cash out and we don't know how much. There's a concept of how much gas in the tank do you have? It goes back to the grinder model. Like how much more gas do you have in the tank? Do you have another 5, 10 years in you? You have 3 to 5, 1 to 2. Are you the right leader to take this and quadruple the size of it? Are you bringing those people? So it's like, if you think you can cash out, make a few million, pay your taxes, put some money in, and it supports the lifestyle you want. Maybe you can invest in other things. So be it. But that's why you have to know what you want to do in a post-acquisition universe, what your lifestyle will be. Design that, and then we'll just work backwards from there.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that. And how do people reach out to you if they are one of those perfect people or they know someone and they want to refer to you? Where do they find you? How do they reach out?
Sure. So it's Tim at the insideman.biz, B-I-Z. That is a URL I set up in like 2006 or something. The Inside Man is an acronym for Tim. That's my name, Tim. And that's the best way, Tim at the insideman.biz, or you can find me on LinkedIn, just type in the Inside Man and my face will pop up.
Brilliant. Absolutely love that. Thank you so much for your time. I have to read out a disclaimer as well, which I forgot to do at the start, despite the fact we talked about it offline. So we may be investors in or earn a commission from all the people and businesses featured in this series. All investment involves risk. Please do your own independent research before making business or investing decisions. Oh, actually, we've got a question. So we haven't quite finished, if that's okay, Tim. Chris says the fish stinks from the head, similar to the emperor has no clothes. Completely agree, and has been my experience in a few seed and Series A ventures. So the question is, how do you solve that as a lieutenant, an employee who's paid or hired to try and help?
Okay, so just so I can reframe the question, it's you're not the head fish. You're a paid individual who's working on behalf of the head fish.
Yeah,
Oh, yes. It's great. Honesty, transparency, um, making it easy for them to change, making it easy for them to make better decisions, showing them paths, option A's and option B's, and showing them how this can lead to something better. I mean, that's probably the best you can do. And then as back to my earlier comment, which is I'm always prepared to walk, because if someone is not prepared to change, I only have so much time in my life to work with someone. So I need to work with people that are bought in. They're bought in, they're ready to do the work. It's like you can't lift the weights for the other person. So It is a delicate balance. And I would also say that always look at it from the standpoint of the fish, because the standpoint of the big fish is I wake up every morning at 5 a.m. I'm the one who starts early. I'm the one that leaves late. You don't know what I'm dealing with behind the scenes. I'm covering for your ass constantly. Like, and here you are telling me blah, 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 blah. So it's like we have to understand their holistic perspective and understand like how difficult their job is. And we're really just trying to help make their job less difficult so we can all be more successful. So it's like, all right, well, give me your grievances and create that safe space. It's like, look, let me take you to lunch. Let me take you to lunch. I will buy the lunch. I don't want your money. I'm taking you to lunch. Okay. But I need the hour. And I want to know that if we go to lunch, that I can be as completely honest as humanly possible. And I want to also know that it's not going to tarnish our relationship. The reason I'm being as honest as I can is because I believe together we can be better. And I believe together we can put tons of cash in each other's pockets. But from what I'm seeing right now, we're kind of going down a dead end. So I need to bring some of those things to light. Can we go to lunch? And just treat them like a straight up peer. I never say I work for anyone. I say I work with everyone. Even when I was a kid, when I was working at a pizza shop, driving pizzas, I was like, I don't work here. I'm working with them. We are delivering pizzas together. It's not like you against me. It's like we. Even when I hire a new employees today, I say, we drop the word I. The second you come in the door, there is no more I's. It's only we's.
I love that. Really, really powerful. Thank you, Tim. And thank you for all of your knowledge bombs and pearls of wisdom today. I've really enjoyed it. I'm sure everybody has. I shall let you get on with your day, but it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
You got it. It was super fun. Appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Take care. Bye-bye.